Perfect. Always looks cockeyed there, but all right. How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to Communities Connected. I'm Julio Sanchez, and we are back with episode 105. Almost messed that up with this awesome guy, Mike Kelly, who I was really lucky to meet Sunday, right?
Sunday, yep.
Sunday. So I've been talking about bringing him on since Sunday, and yeah, he told me right away Sunday he'd be more than willing to come to the show. I've been anxious to have you on. It's just, again, it's really nice. All the people who have come across the show, and when they've seen it, they want to come on. So to hear your feedback, I mean, Kurt even said he had seen my page, and it just keeps blowing me away just how many people do listen or even come across and take the few little bit. And when they meet me, they're like, yeah, I've seen you. It's kind of awesome what you're doing. I didn't know I'd have that feedback. So
it's a good way to get the information out there. That's for sure.
Yeah.
You're doing a good job.
For me, it's the best way I've done for learning wise. I think that's what kind of we were talking about is this is to me, my way to find education. Most people have listened to the show or met me. They know I went to college for 2 years, then dropped out, money situations. And since then I've just been working, trying to jump jobs, find education that way. And once I dug into this has done so much more than I could ever imagine. So it's great. But so we have you on here for a purpose today. I want to give you a chance to give you background about yourself.
Okay, background. I am retired from General Motors. I'm a Milton hometown boy here. I'm in long-term recovery. And what I do now is I train recovery coaches and I do peer support training for the state of Wisconsin. It's been truly a passion. It's my retirement job, and I get to travel all over the state and meet a ton of interesting people. And I've learned so much. It's an amazing job. It's a dream job.
Yeah. Once you told me what you were doing, it blew me away to know there's this program, because then there was a second phase I threw out there, and you said something along the lines is in the works. But it's interesting to see how many people have the same kind of mindset, So before we get to what you've been doing, kind of want to dig into your background. So you said you worked in General Motors. Did you retire from General Motors?
Retired from General Motors with 32 years.
What year was that?
08.
08? When did General Motors shut down? Because I'm trying to think of all
I think it was 08 or 09. It was right about the same time I retired.
Really? Oh,
yeah.
You kind of left out on that one, didn't you?
Yes, it did.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I heard that was that a good place to work in? What was that like?
I liked it. I did training down there for quite a few years, for a long time. Got bounced around the country a little bit and ended up back in Janesville and retired from Janesville doing training at GM plant.
So you've always been into training, huh? You like teaching?
I do. I never thought I'd like it. I can remember the first the trainer class I took. I was nervous getting up in front of people, and I said to the guy doing the class, I says, when do these butterflies go away? And he says, I've been doing this for 30 years and I still get them.
Yeah, certain crowds will just give you those butterflies. Other ones, you're just like, why does it come back? So you've had a passion for teaching and learning all along?
Yes.
You found your passion for teaching. Yeah. Huh. That's interesting. How old were you when you started training?
I think the first class I did for General Motors, I was probably 21 years old.
Oh, man. So, okay. I thought we had a connection. I luckily got out of high school and got a really good job where I started training people. Now that I see why I think we vibe. My sister and I have always loved teaching people. She actually was the reason why I was influenced to do a lot of things I did. I mentored, tutored in high school, middle school. We would even do little study groups, but it was all because my sister, as an example, was always being a lead. She tried stopping fights by getting in the middle of it, takes the blow for someone. I'm like, Melissa, I understand what you're doing, but it's not the best idea. But I mean, so I've had great influences, and to know that you've always had kind of the passion to learn and then pushing on teaching. It's kind of cool. Not a lot of people can be teachers.
No, but the biggest thing about it is when you see somebody get something, when they really get it, you can see that little, sounds silly, but you see that little spark in their eye, and they get that little smile in the corner of their mouth, and you made a difference. That's huge.
That's what I love about teaching. That's what
makes it worthwhile.
And that's why I like to try to influence as many people to, know what you can do, and don't be afraid to teach someone, even if they take it wrong, it's okay. You at least tried because you felt confident enough. And even if you find out you're wrong, I guarantee you're going to learn through something. That's what I love about teaching, is being wrong.
And 10 times out of 11, I'll get 10 times more from the person I'm teaching than I teach them.
Exactly.
The feedback is amazing.
Yeah, and that's I think that's actually truly why I keep pushing forward to put myself in situations where I can teach someone, especially like jujitsu. I still don't know a lot about it, but I have a good sense from wrestling, and when I'm learning, I'm a fairly quick learner. So I think that's actually what reiterates me to want to teach, because I want to make sure me myself, I keep the information, and when I teach, that's when I'm really understanding what I know. I think that's when everything really flows out, and I learned that through Headhunter when I used to work. Every single new time I trained someone new, I saw something else I would do to make me better. And so then I'd have to go and reteach everybody. And it was always an interesting process. And people were like, why didn't you teach me before? Because I didn't really know until I slowed down once again. And it takes a whole new time for you to slow down to see what you can improve. And it's interesting to me when you pay attention to those little, like, small details.
I'd be interested to see the first class I ever did in this recovery coach thing compared to what it is now, just over a year later. And I'm sure it's huge difference, because you learn so much along the way. Like you were saying, you pick up little tricks, you pick up ideas, you pick up knowledge. Mm-hmm. So it changes. It's a constantly growing thing. It's not stagnant. It's a growing animal.
And that's actually us all along. And I think that's something we need to keep in mind, because if we don't, we get too stubborn. We get too comfortable when we're saying, I've grown the most I can. I've learned the most I can. I'm good. If we're honest with ourselves, that one thing I've kept in mind, I was really glad when I was brought on to be a supervisor through Headhunter, they sent me on a leadership class. Mm-hmm. And they paid for it. And one of the biggest things that stuck with me is when I was getting trained by the lady, she said, if you want to be an effective trainer, you always understand that people don't know what they don't know. There's no dumb questions. And you yourself got to be okay with you don't know what you don't know. So if someone comes up to you, gives you a problem, and you're expected to know, it's okay to go I'll be right back and get that answer, because I currently don't know and I don't want to give you wrong information. I was like, that's something not a lot of us do. We always want to be right. And even though we don't know, we're like, no, I'm right. And this is why I'm right. And I feel like we need to have that reality of learning, and it's okay to be wrong.
You can take the ego out of teaching. You got it made. Once your ego's gone, then you can say, I don't know, but I can find out.
Oh, you might want to influence me to teach people on how to lead. That's actually a good one. Yeah.
There you go.
Taking the ego out of it, and then we can make effective teachers. Okay. Hang on. I got to write that one down. So I write this down. All right. We've been talking about recovery coaching. Let people know kind of what that's about.
What a recovery coach is it's somebody that can work with somebody that wants to go into recovery or is in recovery. And the main thing is to be a resource broker, or to clear out obstacles in the way of somebody trying to recover from a substance use issue or something to that effect. We can work with that person to help them go down the path that they choose. Everybody has their own path of recovery. It's multiple paths, and it can be a combination of paths for people. But the coach's job is just to assist them through there and be a resource broker, and to just help them get through it.
And it's for anyone, whatever what their own struggle is.
It could be alcohol, can be any kind of drugs, can be cigarettes, can be anything.
When did you first start getting involved with recovery coaching?
It all started with the DROP program, in the city of Janesville Police Department had a program they called DROP. It was an acronym for Die, Recover, Prison. And it was a program where it was like first-time offenders or something to that effect could get into recovery, and the police department would back them. So 4 of us from the 12 and 12 Drop-In Center in Janesville, Wisconsin, started working with the police department and working with the people, and we were constantly trying to improve the program. So we came up with the idea of why not start, a lot of the people we worked with were heroin addicts. So we came up with the idea with why not talk to them when they're at their most vulnerable point, which is usually after an overdose. So we started going into the emergency departments and emergency rooms and to talk to the overdose victims to see if they wanted help. And if they did, we'd start them out right after that with other kind of recovery whatever would work for them, whether it be AA, NA, spiritual, could be smart recovery. It doesn't matter. Whatever path they wanted to do. Medically assisted. There's just there's millions of paths out there you can go down, options you have. So it's whatever the person wants. It's not what the coach wants. Coach is just there to clear obstacles and give resources.
So what kind of impact did you see when you started taking the program of dive recovery or prison?
Yes.
And then you switched into emergency room. What was the impact you guys saw?
We saw a lot more people take advantage of the recovery program, coach program, because you are the most vulnerable at that point. Where if you're just talking to somebody that's on the street, they're not really looking for it, It's finding people where they're needed. It's meeting them where they're at and actually remembering what it was like. The people that are coaching have lived experience, so they know what it's like to be in recovery. Maybe not necessarily heroin or cocaine or whatever, but some sort of recovery. They have lived experience. So I know what it's like to be where you're at. And that was a huge difference, just a huge difference. You could go into an emergency department with an overdose person that had suffered an overdose. And once you start talking to them, you could just see the change. And you'd hear so many times a person say, I felt so alone until I started talking to you. There could be 50 people in that emergency department, but until you start talking to somebody that's been where you're at, things don't seem to make sense. And then you feel like you're not alone anymore. There's somebody there with you. And that's where the whole relationship starts. That's where the trust starts. That's where the program starts if they want to follow it.
Were you able to have an opportunity like this while you were going through recovery? Like, is this something that kind of happened to you and influenced you to go into that program and search like this opportunity?
Did something happen to me?
Well, like, because you said you're a recovery.
I'm in long-term recovery. Yes.
So while you were going through recovery, like, did you have someone who's kind of like you stepped in and saw that you may want help, or was this something you sought out after you went through your recovery? Because how did this idea really, because you said it was run before, but kind of what made you go into it?
What made me go into it was I had a friend of mine that before I got into recovery, that used to go into crack houses and help people that wanted recovery get out. He would take them back to his house, him and his wife, and they would get cleaned up in his house and sobered up and detoxed, and he'd get him into recovery programs. And he did that for years. He was in long-term recovery, and I watched him do that. And he ended up getting killed in his own home, murdered in his own home. And I guess this is just one of the ways I figured I could carry on a legacy of his. I really looked up to him. So I guess that's probably a lot of the driving force behind what I do.
Really? So that was your example to see how that you can affect someone's life, especially when you can understand what they're going through?
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
Wow. And that's something that happened here in Janesville? Then?
No, it was out of state.
Out of state? Okay. Wow. That's actually interesting that you saw that influence, because I actually did come across one friend who, she was one time explaining kind of her life scenario. She's like, I'm not 100% proud of everything I've done.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing she said, she's like, but one thing I was happy I did, she's like, I've came across through some like girls that I would meet. They're really young and they started like experimenting with hardcore drugs, and then they were doing like heroin or something. She's like, I was able to offer them a different drug, but at least if they were going to do a drug, they weren't going to kill themselves. And that's kind of what she would explain to them, And I was like, a drug for a drug. That's an interesting thought. But you kind of were explaining that thought too. You want to help someone who doesn't exactly want to be in that scenario type thing. Because it's interesting kind of how she was explaining. In the end,
I think what she was trying to explain is something they call harm reduction.
Okay.
Where harm reduction in the recovery coaching world is taking it down a level, like going from using heroin to going to smoke marijuana or something. Mm-hmm. Just reduce the harm and get so you're closer to full recovery.
Okay.
Just to make your life better.
Yeah, because it was interesting her talking that story, and I've had all sorts of different friends. One story I was telling you was one of my friends who is a recovered heroin addict, and he was talking to me about not like regretting your past, because your past leads to who you are and what you are doing now.
Exactly.
And again, I've heard some of the best advice from people who had put themselves in unfortunate situations, but learned. And to hear those examples is what kind of keeps me clear. And a lot of those messages stick in the back of my mind.
If I hadn't gone through what I went through, I wouldn't be here helping all the people I help. I wouldn't be standing here with you.
True.
So it took all that for me to get here. So I believe everything has a purpose and everything happens for a reason.
Right? Don't really beat yourself down, but realize you can better yourself type thing.
Exactly.
I like that thought.
And just don't give up.
Okay. So explain to me what it's like to go through recovery. Because I was telling you, I've tried making an episode before. And one thing I didn't want to do is kind of create a sense that I'm calling myself an expert in recovery or trying to make sure you have the best way to recover. Because again, a lot of the advice I give out is just daily thoughts. It's what I perceive, what I think is going to help me. So when I spew it out, this is really what's helping me. Hopefully helps you. But now that I know, have someone who can go through and share those experiences, what is that like?
I can tell you what it's like, but can I put you in the experience? No, I can't. That's why recovery coaching works, because we have been there. Have the lived experience of going through the actual recovery. It's not something you can explain. I could explain, yeah, okay, I got sick and tired of being sick and tired, so I decided to quit drinking. Okay, that took months.
Mm-hmm.
Could have taken years to get to that point. Can I explain how that felt to get there? What was the final thing to get me there? No, I can't explain that to you.
Okay.
I can feel it and I can watch him feel it, but it's not something you can explain. It's not that I don't want to. It's just.
No, I understand. That's why your programs are so effective.
That's right. That's why they work.
Okay. Yeah, and that's why I took so much interest in them, because it is one of the first few that I've heard. I've heard about AA before. Recently, I heard about all the other ones. I can't tell you that again because I forget. But to hear what your group does to me is a whole different type of go about it. Sorry.
I think it goes right back to back in the beginning of AA, where it took one alcoholic talking to another alcoholic. That's what started recovery. That was the beginning of AA. That's grown through AA, and NA uses about the same steps, about the same ideas.
Mm-hmm.
It's the whole idea of somebody that has the lived experience, somebody that's been there working with somebody that's going through it.
Okay. So
they can share their experience, strength, and hope and say, okay, this is how I did it. Maybe some of it will work for you.
And yet I was not always, but I did actually find it most recently interesting that you were telling me that although you may be an alcoholic, AA might not be the answer for you. And that to me kind of shocked me to know, how do we have a program that we're saying should help you, but when you go about it, you're saying, don't be afraid to kind of try out the other groups because that might be the advice. How do you actually go about that? I want you to explain it, because again, I'm not an expert, and the way you said it made more sense to me.
Okay. Different things work for different people. AA 12-step program worked for me. That's what got me sober and got me clean. But some people can use that plus a spiritual side of it, a more spiritual side, like some of the religious deals. Some use SMART recovery, which is a science-based thing, and some use a combination. I think the best way to put it is it's like a shotgun effect. Everybody is going to use exactly what they need to get into recovery. To me, I don't care what you use as long as you get into recovery.
Okay.
I'm not out here selling things. I'm saying, if that's going to work for you, let's try things until something works. It's your life we're talking about. It's not, putting up a sign saying, here I am, I'm the winner. It's something that really works for you. And take what you need and use it.
Okay. So with that sense, what are the first few steps you kind of take when you're first meeting someone who wants to get help?
First step I'll take is I'll say, what can I do to help you?
Okay.
Because that person's going to know the most. That person knows that they're at a stage where they must be looking for help if they ask to talk to me. So what can I do to help you? Then from there on, we can give them some options, some things that work. Here's your different, you have NA, AA, all the different programs. You've got whatever options are available to that person, and say, try to explain a little bit about each one and just start working with them. Try to get them into some sort of program to even try it, even if it doesn't work. And they have a backup program, let's try something else and keep trying things. And I'm just there to support them while they're trying them until they find something that works for them, or a combination of things that work for them.
Okay, so your groups are there to support, provide the education that's needed for it, but you guys aren't doing the work for people.
We have a little thing we call with, not for.
You were explaining that before Sunday.
Yeah.
I remember you saying that. And actually, that's what kind of made me bring up the experiences why it was so happened to me at the time, because I was telling I recently had things that happened to me and I was around it and I was sometimes afraid of how I was dealing with it,
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like a lot of people can relate when they're trying to help someone who's trying to recover, who's currently going through an addiction, kind of like the frustration it puts you through.
Mm-hmm.
And I always had seen it, never took it fully into effect what it can do until I firsthand experienced it. And that's why I think it's so important that I get this opportunity to ask you these questions, because it's with you being someone that experienced it and now moving it forward, taking the positive direction to make sure that you're there for people the way they need someone to be there,
Mm-hmm.
And I think in the end, that's kind of what we need. A lot of times, I just think, especially when there's something wrong with us, I feel like we need those ones we trust. And in trust, I really mean too, one thing I really want you to talk about is like the sugarcoating part. I think when it comes to trust, we really need people who are going to be 100% honest, who are going to tell you your faults, but not your faults in a way they're going to break you down, right? How do you guys build that trust with people?
There's a difference between honesty and brutal honesty. In sugarcoating. Sugarcoating is one of my biggest complaints, that people tend to sugarcoat things. But when you're in a relationship like this where you're trying to help somebody in recovery, you can't sugarcoat, because the whole thing's built on trust. If I lose that trust, what is there? If I sugarcoat something and say this is going to happen when it might happen, and that'd be the best scenario, and it doesn't happen, what have I got? I just lied to you. It didn't happen.
Right. You gave
So
like
there goes
false
the
hope.
trust. It's false hope, exactly. So I do not give false hope, and I can seem cruel at times, but it's not meant to be cruel. It's just no sugarcoating. So I'm not going to build a false trust.
So with that false trust, then I want to bring the point that you were saying you are honest with people when they happen to relapse.
Yep.
How do you go about that when you start hearing that someone relapsed and now they need the support?
When I first came in the program, I relapsed quite a few times, and I know what it's like. And I found that the thing that helped me the most was just being supported, not being chastised, not being ridiculed, not being anything, just being supported. Because I know I screwed up. People relapse. They don't want to relapse. It's, some things that happen. Sometimes it's part of that growth. Sometimes it's part of your recovery. Just like I said, everything has to happen for you to get to the point where you're at.
Okay.
I had to relapse that many times to get to the point where I thought, okay, this didn't work, this didn't work, this didn't work. So I won't do that again, because I relapse when I do that.
Right.
So I had to learn those lessons.
Okay.
So a relapse is like a lesson learned for me.
So you found like a really, really good pattern. And when you found something that took you out of that pattern, you start retracing your pattern you're doing, make sure not to make that mistake again.
Right.
Okay. I think that's a good way to look about it, because I had previously asked you what's the structure you go about when you deal with people, and you're like, there isn't one. And I was like, okay, that's interesting.
Everybody's life is different. It took all these things that happened to you in your life for you to get to where you're at right now.
Mm-hmm.
It took all these things that happened to me to get me where I'm at right now. How can I come up with a structure where you've got two unknowns getting together and come up with a structure? There is no structure, because you don't know what you got.
Okay.
So you got to just kind of build it as you go. That's what the whole trust thing is about. You build trust, you don't build structure.
Okay. And now I get what you're saying, because then if you gave them a structure, you're giving them false hope. Follow these steps, you'll be clean. And when they slip up, you lied to me type thing. Now I'm understanding. Okay.
You got basic steps like AA has steps, NA has steps. That's all well and good. That's a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that works for some people. Some people doesn't. But so I'm not saying steps are fine. Don't get me wrong there. They worked for me.
Yeah.
Those did. But those are basic steps. It's not like a structured every, can I follow this if this happens now? No.
Okay. What would your best advice be to somebody who relapsed or feels themselves in a situation where they may? Because could I ask you what it feels like when you're going through that scenario that you may relapse?
Sure. My brain will lie to me.
Okay.
Tell me, yes, I can have one beer. I can't. It's just simple. It's going to tell me, well, nobody will know anyway, blah, 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 all excuses so that I can use. My advice, if you're feeling like that, get a hold of somebody, call somebody. AANA, they have people they call sponsors that you can call, people you're working with, call your recovery coach, call your friend that you're in a program with, or somebody that you know that is clean. But reach out to somebody. Don't sit there and stew on it by yourself.
I think you can do it by yourself. Okay. I think that's actually super important. I'm glad I asked that question, because no matter what, I feel people have a problem reaching out, period. Whether it's going to be something good or something bad, we have a problem. And me personally, I can tell you I've felt that, because I told you when I first kind of heard stuff you and Kurt were doing, I was afraid to reach out, because again, it was like, what can I offer you that's worth your time? To me, you're doing a lot of important work. The things you're doing takes time. And for you to step here, I was really shy and afraid to go, well, why would he want to come in, and spend that time where he could be helping someone? And it was, again, kind of, to me, it was knowing what do I have to provide once I came up with the channel. And when you told me this is the best idea and like a really good idea to get information, I felt thankful, So to know that as long as we know what we can offer, you're not going to be afraid to ask for help, because you know how far you can go. And if you know your limitations, it's okay to reach for help, because then your limitations will grow.
Kind of goes back to the teaching thing. When I'm helping somebody learn something and see them get it, it makes me feel better.
Mm-hmm.
When I'm helping somebody stay clean or sober, that's keeping me clean and sober. Okay. I'm learning from their mistakes. I'm learning from what's working for them. This is a constant learning process. It's not
you're clean,
it's
you're
not
done.
a lineal thing. It's a up and down thing. You got to learn from every minute, everything you're doing. And when I'm working with somebody else, I'm learning and I'm staying clean and sober.
I like that. I like that you're taking what you need and you're finding out that in order to keep that for you, you got to obviously keep helping people.
To keep what you have, you got to give it away.
True. I agree with that. And even in general, just to gain anything, to me, it's always kind of give. I like to give out. It's actually interesting you say that, because on the way here, I was thinking of doing a later episode of like, sometimes it's okay to be taken for granted. Don't be someone's fool, but don't be afraid to always be given to people, Mm-hmm. I feel like the more we give, no matter if people end up taking us for granted, everything you've given in the past will come back to you and be brought forth exactly what you gave, And I feel like the more energy we take, making sure that just us are okay, I think we're obviously going to harm ourselves. There's going to be a time where we're going to find out our limitations. And when we look back to see what kind of team we have, you're all alone again. It's like, damn. Thank you for this.
It's especially true in this type of thing. It's called planting a seed. If I tell you, what's working for me, and you see how happy I am and how much better I am, and I was where you were at, that's going to stick in your head for the rest of your life, remembering that. That's seed plant. That's going to grow until you want to do something for yourself.
Okay, so you can help them plant the seed. You're just not going to water it for them. You're going to make sure they water it. I like all of this, and it's, again, it's okay for us to slip up. It's just moving forward past that, So if anyone wanted to reach out to these programs, what's the best way to reach out to them? To reach out recovery coaching or peer support? Or how would someone get into those programs who needs the help, I guess?
Who needs the help? There's recovery coaching. Most of them are tied to grants right now. It's relatively a new thing. So a lot of it is tied to like hospital EDs. But in some of the bigger places like Madison, I know they're reaching out into a whole bunch of different areas. Janesville's starting to reach out in different areas. There's the one-on-one recovery coach in Janesville. And I don't have their number right here, but you could probably Google it and find it.
It's called just one-on-one recovery coach?
One-to-one.
One-to-one?
Yep. And
number one or ONE?
Then number 2, then ONE.
Okay.
That's a recovery coaching group here in Janesville. To get into it, there's classes offered where you can take recovery coach classes. And as far as the whole peer support is more or less more of the mental health side of the recovery coaching thing. It's like another step of the recovery coach process. To do that, it's a state certified program. So if you go on the Wisconsin State Peer Support Initiative webpage. They have classes listed there where you can sign up to get into them, and all the information to be on that page.
And you would obviously would influence people who have gone through recovery to kind of take those classes to, get involved with the program?
Oh, without a doubt.
Definitely. Because, again, to me, teaching can bring the best out of you.
Yep.
Okay. I want to make sure you try to get all of them because, like I said, all the groups you're involved in is phenomenal. I don't know how you have all this time. It's crazy what you do.
Retired.
Can I retire?
Yeah.
What's the plan to retire? Is there a structure to that?
Yeah.
Work forever. Oh, man. So then we have peer support and then recovery coaching. You're saying if you want to be one of those coaches, then there's the websites you go to for peer support.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. And then other than that, people who are trying to get help around the area and county, just make sure
there's hotlines. There's an AA hotline. There's an NA hotline. You can call like any of the drop-in center, 1212 drop-in center. You could probably stop in there for meetings. Call the hotlines and they can give you the information on what's going on right
Would
now.
the hotlines be best just in general for Wisconsin? Anyone in Wisconsin trying to get help?
There should be hotlines any place in the United States.
Okay.
But the hotline number you get here would be for like Janesville and Rock County.
Oh,
for this
okay.
district.
Okay, so hotlines go by district.
NA has hotlines also.
Okay.
And they can get you hooked up with meetings or just talk to somebody. Or you can call, I would imagine you can even call a crisis.
Yeah. What's crisis?
Crisis is a Rock County program where it's a 24-hour program, and that's about all I know about it. But they deal mostly with people in crisis.
Okay.
But it's an open phone number.
See, it's good you bring all these programs up, and that's what I'm trying to ask as many as I can real quick because I never knew of any of these. And if we want to get the people that want the help, especially get the information, I feel like it's going to be one of the quickest ways we'll get the information to them. So, I'm just going to bombard you this last little bit with questions on how people can get the help they need to. Because down the line, I'll probably want to talk again about addiction. I'd definitely love to bring you back on again and see kind of what more work you've been doing, what more things have been on. Because you said you're constantly improving these programs as you go.
It changes all the time. It's all growth, that's for sure.
I'd like to see how your first few classes went.
I'd be afraid to see them.
Unfortunately, I can see how my first episode went. So
there you go.
It's interesting because that's where I've taken the most growth is seeing back. And have you ever recorded any of these teachings or when no? I think one day maybe you should for yourself.
You think so? Huh?
Yeah.
I think it's going to be bad enough looking at episode 105 here.
No, I think you're going to enjoy it. And you've been really natural. I think everyone comes on. That's why I kind of get you guys behind here. But no, all the information you gave us was really, really solid. I definitely have learned a lot in these 33 minutes and more than I would have learned by myself, more than I would have learned in Google, because, it takes more time. And to know that we have available information is just finding the right source, And I think now that I've talked to you, you gave me a few names of other people I want to reach out to. I think I found the right sources for the questions that I have. Because, again, I'm not ever going to be able to relate to what you've been through or anyone else is going through. So if they're going through something that's, like kind of worse scenario than me, there's no way I'm going to be able to affect their life to tell them what they should do. Mm-hmm. And I feel like the more people I bring in here, the more they can relate. To me, that's going to be the best way to get a lot of messages out. This is just great. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. It was really awesome. Anyways, guys, I hope you guys had an awesome, what's today, Wednesday? Thursday? Wednesday. And we will be back tomorrow.